Welcome! This week's Forge tutorial is all about mold making. And no, we're not talking about penicillin, but rather silicone molds that you can use to make replicas of a variety of different objects. You'll need a tube of 100% silicone caulk, and the key thing here is that it's 100% silicone. Cheap or expensive, the brand doesn't really matter. You'll need a caulking gun to dispense that caulk, and you'll need about a quarter cup of blue dish soap or green, and 1 cup of water to mix that soap with, and a container to mix it in. To cast your mold, you'll need either some beeswax or other wax and plaster of Paris. You'll need a glove to help you make the mold because it's rather sticky, and a little stirring stick to mix the soap and water. We're going to be making a relatively small mold for this 3D printed spider. You can feel free to adjust the quantities of caulk used if you're trying to make a mold of a larger object. The first step is to add the soap and the water in your container and stir this up until the water turns a light blue or light green if you're using green dish soap, and then you're ready to start your mold. It might be a good idea to do this in the next couple of steps outside. It can get rather messy and, as you'll see with the silicone gel, a little stinky. After you've cut the tip of the silicone gel off, give 3 big squirts into your soap and water mixture. This will give us enough silicone for that small spider. Again, adjust quantities as you see fit for the size of your object. After putting on your glove, coat it with a little bit of soapy water and then start kneading this piece of silicone together. If you want, use 2 gloves in both hands, but you should be able to do this process with 1 hand. Keep kneading that up. You'll see it is a little sticky and will stick to your glove. Try to reintegrate those pieces back into the larger ball of silicone and keep kneading until you reach a stage where it's not really sticking to your glove, but is still very pliable, and you can begin making your mold. Encapsulate your object in your new silicone ball. Be careful here not to poke through the bottom of the mold. In this case, it's what you see, it's the top, but when we pour into it, it will be the bottom. Be careful not to poke holes through that part because we don't want our wax or plaster to drip out of the bottom of our mold. Set this aside for at least an hour as the silicone mold dries. After an hour or more, carefully remove the object from your mold and begin mixing up your plaster according to the directions on the box. You should be able to then pour this substance directly into your mold. If it's a little too thick, add a bit more water so that that's possible. Make sure that the plaster gets down into all parts of the mold and either tamp it down gently on the table or use your fingers to smooth it out. Now set that aside so that it can dry. Because I had more plaster, I decided to make another cast of a mold that I already had and use some of the plaster with a spoon, in this case, to show a different technique. You can scrape off that extra plaster, kind of using the spoon as a squeegee to flatten everything out and scrape off the excess. Again, set that aside to dry, and while it dries, check out some of these examples of previous casts made. Once you've waited the requisite amount of time, go ahead and pull out your plaster gently from your molds. You should be able to pry the side slowly away and get that plaster out without too much breakage. I didn't quite wait enough time, so the sides are chipping a little bit as I do this. And here's a closer look of that Roman bust cast in plaster. I definitely didn't wait enough time to remove the plaster spider from the mold, as you can see, and all of the legs kind of got lost and broken off. So I have a spider body, but no legs. So I'm going to try wax. Use whatever technique you want to melt your wax down and then pour it into the mold just like you did with the plaster. Here's a rose as an example. I think the wax turns out really nice and gives some really great details. Here's the spider. Let's see if I can get it out this time. 4 out of 8 legs isn't too bad. Experiment with different objects and use these techniques to create candles or just fun works of art. Thanks for watching. Have fun and keep making.